You, the viewer. What does the Bank of England, Lord Denning and Christabella have in common? They all appear to have reasonable knowledge of promissory notes and how they are perceived, made and then used. Would you disagree with Lord Denning's ruling on promissory notes? Or the Bank of England's very own representation of their promissory notes? Another question comes to my mind right now. What gives the Bank of England any alleged authority over their creation of money any different to yours? You've obviously been in touch with the court again now?
Yes, I have, yeah.
And what's the result of that? Interesting, you've got some promissory notes there, haven't you?
Yes, I do have, yes.
Can I just say, I've heard about them, but I don't know how they work. I will now interrupt your viewing with some very important information about the police. The British police force are available for hire, and I will prove it to you in the next 2 minutes with a government-backed legislation. The question has to be asked by yourself. Is the Great British Police Force a corporation for hire? Many of you, the viewers, will have already witnessed police turning up at house evictions and then appearing to side with the bailiffs. Evidence of this appears to be everywhere, and you don't need to go too far on social media to witness things like this for yourself. This is a message to all lower-ranking police officers out there who are tasked to do a job.
You caused all of this! You put all of this on all these people! What kind of respect I was supposed to have for you, and you, and you, and you? Fascists!
The truth of the matter may well be this. How would you know if you're on a paid job or not?
He's dead, he's dead. What? He's dead.
Resuscitating him. This is not good.
Do you realize what happened today? There was a peaceful protest. A peaceful protest.
Your very own Police Act 1996, Section 25, Subsection 1, has a caveat for provision of special services for hire, and this is what it says. The Chief Officer of Police of a police force may provide at the request of any person special police services at any premises or in any locality in the police area for which the force is maintained, subject to the payment to the local policing body. And it carries on to read of charges on such scales as may be determined by that body. Also goes on to mean the same applies to the British Transport Police Force, and in both cases, an amount determined by that body, which is deemed the body incorporate, or an authority, meaning the British Transport Police Authority. Let's now go back to Christabella and find out more about her journey with the promissory note and how the bank treated it.
My first journey with promissory notes started, I'd say, in 2021. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't very careful with keeping my paperwork together and organised. So I sent a promissory note in relation to my mortgage so that I could clear the amount of my mortgage, and filled it in with following the instructions, sent it to the CEO as instructed so that they could take it out of the treasury. And then I waited. 3 years went past, but before I actually did the promissory note, I asked about, the redemption fee, etc. I also asked about the deeds to the house, and was surprisingly told that the deeds since 2003 got destroyed. Every original deed that a householder had was destroyed, which went to digital, which from what I understand, you're supposed to have the security and the deed together to make it count, and if they're separated, the mortgage becomes null and void.
Promissory notes. This is what I thought was a promissory note. Available in 5, 10, 20 and even £50 promissory note values. Let me tell you now, all UK coins, whether circulating or non-circulating, are authorised as legal tender by a royal proclamation in accordance with the Coinage Act of 1971. Legal tender allows UK coins to be accepted for payment of debts in court, but only circulating legal tender coins are designed to be spent and traded at businesses and banks. Note the descriptive word designed. not the same as can also be used. The only reference to court in the Coinage Act of 1971 is not automatically to be deemed will be accepted in court only, and nowhere in the Coinage Act that I'm aware of does it state to this gaslighting statement in the Coinage Act of 1971. Black belt barrister gaslighted people about this section. The only reference to the word court in the Coinage Act of 1971 is indeed Section 10, subsection 4, and that's to do with restrictions on melting or breaking of metal coins, and reads as follows. The court by or before which any person is convicted of an offence under this section may, whether or not it imposes any other punishment, order the articles in respect of which the offence was committed to be forfeited to Her Majesty. How does that deem that uncirculated legal tender coins are only accepted in a court? This is not the only thing that Black Belt Barrister gaslighted people about. Enough about Triple B, and back to promissory notes. As controversial as they are, this is what I found out from Christabella, who's embarking on a journey to seek the promise of truth.
I did the promissory note, followed the instructions, and waited 3 years. During that time, nothing came back, nothing was returned back to me to say it was not accepted. And as far as I was concerned, and I was told, I didn't have to worry. It was accepted as cash. So that's what I did. But because I lost that duplicate from the original, and I didn't have anything to back up what I'd done, after 3 years, when the mortgage company decided that they wanted to get in touch with me to tell me they're going to take my home, I was really concerned, because as far as I was concerned, that wasn't meant to be a problem for me.
So for 3 years, did you pay your mortgage?
No.
So as far as you're concerned, yeah, the mortgage is paid for, and
Yes.
3 years passed, and you hadn't heard anything.
That's
and then
right.
suddenly you got a letter through the post.
I got told, I got a letter from Halifax basically saying I owed them 26,000 at the time, and I was a bit confused, because I thought, what? I don't understand. Then I got correspondence basically last year to say I was being taken to court for possession.
How much did you write the original promissory note for to pay off your mortgage?
80,000.
In Satan's world, money is deemed the root of all evil. Does anybody know who said this following quote? Permit me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws. Many say it was Mayer Amschelm Rothschild, the German Jewish banker and founder of the Rothschild banking dynasty, also referred to as a founding father of international finance. This is the Supreme Court of Israel, Jerusalem, just off Rothschild Street. Shrouded in mystery with a pyramid unseen from the road with a controversially named street leading to it. Sderot Rothschild, Tel Aviv, Israel, another place in Israel on Rothschild Boulevard. I will speak no more about these places and get back onto the topic of money, for money is widely accepted to be the root of all evil. And we all know how thick brown envelopes have been used by corrupt gangsters in the past, present, and no doubt, into the future. So you'll have seen some corruption in your time?
I wouldn't say corruption in police, no. Genuinely, I mean, I think films don't have much to help things. I think like Hollywood films and stuff don't always help situations.
Perhaps I should rephrase that. You will have seen some fellow police officers being convicted in your time.
Yeah.
When I originally borrowed, it was 80,500. Okay, I had 33,000 deposit on the actual mortgage that I was going for, and that was like 18 years ago. Yeah, so I was on a repayment mortgage, so technically I should have been paying off quite a bit of it. But the 3 years, I decided that, obviously from paying with the promissory note, it wasn't an issue for me, so I thought that that was all done and dusted. And it would appear that they did not only not return my promissory note to me to say that it had been rejected during those 3 years, I was also faced with potential eviction. So yeah.
This is your little doggy here, isn't it?
Yeah.
I noticed it's only got 3 legs.
I know. Little Angel. She had an accident when she was a puppy. But Yeah, she's such a sweetheart.
This is a promissory note, and there are millions of people who do not know what they are now about to find out. It's written in small print, under their nose. Very, very small print on every promissory note you have ever held, also commonly known as money. But can the banks put their alleged money where their mouth is? After a very brief read of the Bank of England website, I reasonably conclude that the banks cannot put their money where the value of their money is alleged to be. I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of. It is therefore deemed by its use a simple method of creating a debt for the purchaser. We will use a very expensive ham sandwich as an example. If I pay you a £10 promissory note for a ham sandwich with mustard on it, when I receive the ham sandwich to eat it, that is when the debt is created. Therefore, you only get the true value of the £10 at a later date when you return back to me for the X amount of silver or gold that is supposed to back its alleged value as stated by the bank. In order to get the value of the silver or gold, somebody handling the promise to pay would have to go to the bank and cash in the promissory note. This would then settle the original agreed debt created with the promise to pay for the ham sandwich with mustard. Alternatively, if the sandwich shop owner takes the promissory note for the sandwich, then goes and pays his electricity bill, then the original ham sandwich with mustard debt created is instantly discharged from the ham sandwich purchaser, as it has now been reused to purchase something for the sandwich shop owner. And so the cycle repeats itself, because a promissory note is deemed a negotiable instrument in monetary terms. More on this later. Let's hear more from Christabella.
The promissory note, it tells you about the bills of exchange here at the top under Lord Denning. A promissory note is cash, and cash is promissory note.
Lord Denning said that?
Lord Denning, yes, in court.
The year was 1969. Judge Lord Denning, Master of the Rolls, said, "We have repeatedly said in this court that a bill of exchange or a promissory note is to be treated like cash. It is to be honoured unless there is some good reason to the contrary. And the Bill of Rights 1882 is still in force on the government legislation website for all to read." Lord Denning was Master of the Rolls between 1962 and 1982, and yes, history does appear to show us that Lord Denning seemed to be a judge for the people. And for a quick reference to the Conservative government, he also dealt with the highly controversial Proof Homo affair, a major scandal in British politics during the early 60s, like many other scandals amongst Labour and the rest of them. Lord Denning was born on the 23rd of January 1899 and died on the 5th of March 1999.
So if you're told to arrest somebody and you haven't got reason to suspect their arrest, will you follow the order of the sergeant?
It's my decision. It's my decision. I'm a sergeant. It's my decision to arrest people. No one could tell me or any other officer to arrest someone.
So what happens when the higher echelon tell you to arrest someone? What do you do?
I could say no. To be respectful to my bosses on that one, I went back to him and said, I don't agree because of this, this and this. Maybe they've been misinformed. They would agree with that. And there would not be, none of the bosses I know would make me arrest someone unlawfully.
With this promissory note, you put the amount over here in numbers as well as words, and then you put your details here along with the address it's associated with, and you also put other information like who it's going to be paid to, along with your address again. It's like your signature, so to speak, but you have one here and one that you put in words. So you sign it in blue.
And why do you sign it in blue?
Because you are classed as a living woman or a living man.
All right, so if you signed it in any other colour, like black for instance,
yes.
What would that mean?
That would mean you are, what you're saying is you're corporate.
Right, as that termed as person is the same thing?
Yes.
Right, so there's a difference between person and living man, living woman.
Yes.
And not a lot of people know that.
Yeah. I have to admit, I didn't know that. It's only along this journey, I was grateful enough to meet people who had been researching and been doing that and were able to give me the advice, and that's how I've picked up the information as well.
I do believe I need to learn much more about promissory notes than I have heard about to date. So what do you get for a Bank of England £10 promissory note if you take it to the bank and try to cash it? Nothing. Why? Because there is nothing backing the bank's promissory note. And believe it or not, it's only a currency belief system identified as fiat currency. I will add a link to the Bank of England website that highlights more information about their current monetary belief system. Back to Christabella and her own promissory note research and journey for you, the viewer, to research or debate amongst yourselves. For what you are about to hear may be worth millions. What do you think? 3 years, you didn't hear anything, then you got a letter.
Yeah.
And how much was it for again that they sent the letter for after 3 years?
They said that that it then said it was 26. Now it's as time's gone on, it would be 28 or 29,000.
The odd thing about it, from what you just said, is you mentioned £26,000 they've asked for, but yet 3 years ago you wrote an amount for 83,000.
Yes.
So if you haven't paid anything since then, why haven't they asked you for 83,000 instead of 26,000?
I don't know.
That's a bit strange.
I know. I didn't understand it myself, but...
So what's happening now then?
So what's happened is they've basically said I'm in arrears. Okay. The most recent, I got correspondence basically from Halifax saying it's now gone up to 28,000, which was this year. And plus, that was from Halifax. And then I got correspondence from court saying that Bank of Scotland was taking me to court to repossess my home, which I was a little bit surprised because it's Halifax on my paperwork.
So Bank of Scotland were taking you to court, but your mortgage was with Halifax?
Yes.
Do you think they could have sold the mortgage on?
I believe.
Or are they incorporated in some way?
I believe, well, I don't believe, I heard that they merged. Okay, so they merged together.
So let's just recap. The Bank of England says this: we promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of. Lord Denning said this: we have repeatedly said in this court that a bill of exchange or a promissory note is to be treated like cash. It is to be honoured unless there is some good reason to the contrary. And the Bill of Rights 1882 is still in force on the government legislation website. Christabella then did this: created a promissory note and sent it to the bank. When the bank received Christabella's promissory note, they kept it. You've got them knocking on your door, basically, almost.
Yeah.
They've been to court, have they?
They have. Now, that was interesting. I was really quite poorly at the time, and I got correspondence coming through, and my mental health became really, I was quite upset, really stressed, disturbed about what was going on, because as you can understand, I didn't expect all of this to start happening. It just seemed I ended up being in a situation that I never counted on being in. So it did take me by a bit of surprise, because I thought everything was okay. And when I had to reach out for somebody to help, I was asking, please, can anybody help me? I couldn't afford to go and get legal advice, for help with support from solicitors. And they recommended me somebody to go and talk to. And he was kind enough to call me, put my mind at rest, said that he would help me with communication, documentation, correspondence, and so that we could deal with the situation.
And where has that all led you to so far?
Well, the interesting thing is that the correspondence that we were doing was, we asked, and I applied for an N244 form that allows you to make an application to court so that you can, request, i.e. an adjournment for a later date, because I was unwell at the time and I had doctors that could confirm that in writing, which they did. But what they did was, I put my application form in and they basically rejected it. I didn't know that they rejected it. Nobody got back to me to let me know that it had been rejected.
So they sent you a notice of eviction and you put in an N244, is that how it worked?
Yes.
So you got your notice of eviction.
Yes.
You then put in your N244.
Yes.
And just again, from that being put in, they've ignored it.
Yeah, they threw it out of court, which I didn't know until after the court had, which I didn't expect that. I thought they were going to sort out with me another date where I was well enough to attend as a living woman, with a Mackenzie friend, and they had completely rejected that, decided to withhold that information from me, and then proceeded to carry on without me being there, even breaching my human rights. And what was interesting was I had ages ago I had like a suspended order, which I was in arrears at the time, and I'd been clearing it up. So the actual suspended order, had expired. They only have 6 years. So it had expired, and it expired about over 3 years. For over 3 years, it had been expired. But what Ascent Legal decided to do was that they wanted to get the judge to backdate and cover the expired 3 years that I was no longer under the order, and have that covered, and add another 6 more years so they could get me out of my home by December 2023, January 2024.
You, the viewer, what does the Bank of England, Lord Denning and Christabella have in common? They all appear to have reasonable knowledge of promissory notes and how they are perceived, made and then used. Would you disagree with Lord Denning's ruling on promissory notes, or the Bank of England's very own representation of their promissory notes? Another question comes to my mind right now. What gives the Bank of England any alleged authority over their creation of money any different to yours? You've obviously been in touch with the court again now.
Yes, I have, yeah.
And what's the result of that? Because obviously you're facing an eviction tomorrow, aren't you?
Yes.
So what happened in court today?
Well, I had to apply for, a friend helped me to apply for a step change breathing space. I can honestly say this really affected me emotionally, very, very distressed, affected my mental health. So, you know, I needed the support really, with everything really, to try and help me get through it. However, going to court today, I was able to get the breathing space approved. During which that time, while we were waiting, I was in the midst of trying to do another N244 form, basically asking for a stay order and a void order, to void the order that they had consented to, and also a Property Miscellaneous Act, which meant that I was challenging Halifax and Ascent Legal, who was the paralegal team, to I was requesting full disclosure of the mortgage, the original contract signed, and asking where was the contract that I signed between me and Bank of Scotland.
I find this very odd. A man is laid on the floor receiving CPR, and this ambulance driver is putting a hazmat suit on. And I don't know if you noticed, but I think that's been used more than once. It's got a rip behind the knee. What you're seeing now looks like something out of a movie. Well, it appears to be like this. Matt Hancock only claims to have broken the rules.
But my point is that the distinction between the laws and the guidelines, right, which is the reason I wasn't fined and I didn't break any laws, that's not relevant, right? And I don't seek to excuse my behaviour.
Who knows what's going to happen next? I'm all up for #reform police now. Whatever reform they've managed to do over the past few years, there obviously needs to be more. I've managed to get some more information on Rob, the man pushed over the concrete block by a South Yorkshire police officer. And he's a lucky man. He was pushed over, and shortly afterwards, South Yorkshire police had to perform CPR. Dark times. I will never forget what happened on this day. All you're asking for now in this breathing space is prove that you owe them money.
That's
and all
right,
they need to do now is present the documents that you signed.
Yes.
And if they can't obviously present those documents you signed, then are you actually paying the right person? Or should it be someone else taking you to court? Someone who allegedly you owe money to.
Yeah.
And I suppose an appeal would be right now, for the real person who you owe money to, would be
to come forward
with the contract.
Yes, come forward with a contract. I have, you know, if you can prove to me that I owe you that money, then come forward. I'm happy to clear my whatever arrangement I can clear with you, but I need proof. Like with anything, you go buy something, you have a receipt. Show me the receipt. Show me where the money came from. Show me it was you that paid me the money, so I know who I am supposed to pay.
So you've come at this from two angles.
Yeah.
You've followed the promissory note route.
Yes.
And you thought you'd paid it off.
Yes.
Because you thought you owed them money. Mm-hmm. They obviously ignored you and come back to you. But all you're asking for now is just proof of claim.
Yes.
And then you can take that to the next level.
Yeah.
And pay them, perhaps, like you just mentioned.
Yeah, and
with another promissory note, perhaps.
Well, to be honest, promissory note, from what I know and understand and believe, according to Lord Denning, it basically states that it is classed as cash, and cash is classed as a promissory note. They are both the same, one and the same.
Anybody who's in a situation where they're unsure about their own contracts with the mortgage companies, what could you advise them to do? Obviously, if they're still paying the mortgage, it would be wise to carry on paying. It would be wise to carry on paying.
Yeah.
So what would you advise them to do while they're still paying?
Well, the best advice I can really give you is you're paying people money, your hard sweat and equity. You want to know where that money's really going and who it is that you're actually owing that money to. Ask for proof. Get your original contracts. Show the wet ink signatures. Generally, they say there's supposed to be 2 witnesses and yourself. So from my experience, I only had myself and the solicitor. And they always normally say if you have 3 people, fraud, it stops fraud from happening, because no one can add, no one can take away. It's all there. Everybody's present in the same room doing the contracts at the same time.
Well, as part of my journey to learning about promissory notes now and mortgages and fraudulent mortgages, I'm learning a lot as I go along.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you very much for sharing your information with myself.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if there's any viewers out there who want to comment and debate amongst themselves, the comment section is for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some little bit of correspondence which I actually sent to, which explains, is it possible if I can, I don't know if it's there with you, or it's basically, hold on a second, just bear with me one moment. Okay, let's see. I've got a letter which which was drafted, and just so that you know and understand more about the promissory note from a legal point of view and a lawful point of view, this is what I wrote. This is what was wrote. Please find enclosed 4 promissory notes as full and final payment and settlement for the amount outstanding on my account. I would very much appreciate it if you could send me a receipt for the payments received within 30 days of the date of this letter. Please amend the credit file as settled full on this date. If not, then I will be reporting to Inland Revenue that you have been paid this amount in cash. In brackets, cash is promissory notes and promissory notes are cash as per the Bills of Exchange Act and Lord Denning's ruling. The fact is that you've been paid cash on this date, so Inland Revenue will be informed that you are failing to note this taxable event if you ever deny that you have been paid in full and in cash. If you still claim that this has not been paid in cash, then I will make a report to Action Fraud and mark the crime reference number on my file, and the police will be in touch with you. Please understand that a promissory note is defined as a negotiable financial instrument upon creation, signature and delivery. As per Bills of Exchange Act 1882, Part 4, its use as a legitimate method of payment is protected under Lord Denning's ruling in Fielding and Platt Limited versus Salim Naja 1969, whereby Lord Denning declared, "We have repeatedly said in this court that a bill of exchange or a promissory note is to be treated as cash. It should be honoured. Therefore, a promissory note cannot be rejected as a payment preference." Please note, if you choose to return this payment, then this payment offered is payment refused, which is still payment made. If you claim that you do not accept promissory notes, then you are challenging the Bills of Exchange Act and are going against Lord Denning's ruling. You are welcome to challenge this act, but the fact remains that you have received payment in cash, and it would be fraudulent to deny this. I have retained photocopies of the original promissory notes for my records. Please ensure that all enforcement consideration in this matter or action is ceased with immediate effect. Yours sincerely.
Very quickly then, your original promissory note was for 80...
It was to be honest, I think it was 80,000. No, yeah, 80,000.
Okay, so taking that as a figure, did you ever receive that promissory note back?
No, I never got it.
So what do you think the bank's done with that?
I think they've cashed it.
I am going to include some links in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and more house evictions are coming very soon.